The streets of Goma, once vibrant and teeming with life, are now consumed by chaos. Gunfire echoes through the air, a terrifying soundtrack to a city under siege. M23 rebels, a menacing force long feared, have stormed the city, leaving a trail of destruction and despair in their wake. Panic grips the hearts of Goma's residents. Their city, their sanctuary, has become a war zone. Black smoke billows into the sky, a grim testament to the relentless shelling. Buildings once homes and businesses now bear the scars of conflict. The air is thick with tension, a palpable fear that hangs heavy over every street corner. The rebels, heavily armed and seemingly unstoppable, advance through the city, their presence casting a dark shadow over everything. Amidst the chaos, stories of unimaginable suffering begin to emerge. A hospital, a beacon of hope in times of crisis, becomes a target. Doctors and nurses, their white coats stained with blood, work frantically to save lives. A baby, innocent and vulnerable, lies injured in a hospital bed, a victim of the senseless violence. The city's infrastructure crumbles under the weight of the assault. Water and electricity, lifelines for the population, are cut off, plunging Goma into darkness. The most basic necessities become luxuries, out of reach for those trapped within the city's besieged walls. A mass exodus begins. Men, women and children, their faces etched with fear, flee their homes, desperate to escape the violence. They carry with them only what they can hold, precious belongings abandoned in the rush to survive. The roads out of Goma are choked with a tide of humanity, a sea of desperate faces searching for safety. Families are torn apart, separated in the chaos. Children clutch tightly to their parents' hands, their eyes wide with terror. The elderly, their frail bodies struggling to keep up, are carried by loved ones, their faces etched with a lifetime of hardship. Among the fleeing crowds, a mother weeps, her voice hoarse from calling out the name of her missing child. Inside the city, those who cannot escape huddle in their homes, their hearts pounding with every explosion. They pray for an end to the violence, for a moment of peace in the midst of the storm. Their voices, muffled by fear, rise in unison, pleading for deliverance from the nightmare that has enveloped their lives. Eyewitness accounts paint a harrowing picture of the situation. A local journalist, his voice trembling, describes seeing the rebels in the streets, their faces hardened by conflict. He speaks of the fear that grips the city, the uncertainty of what the future holds. His words, a chilling reminder of the human cost of this conflict, are broadcast across the world, a desperate plea for help. The international community, jolted into action by the unfolding crisis, scrambles to respond. Condemnations ring out from world leaders, their words offering little solace to those caught in the crossfire. Aid agencies, their resources stretched thin, mobilized to provide assistance to the growing number of displaced people. An emergency summit is hastily arranged, a desperate attempt to find a diplomatic solution to the crisis. Regional leaders, their faces etched with concern, gather to discuss the situation. The African Union, its voice carrying the weight of the continent, calls for an immediate ceasefire, urging all parties to lay down their arms and engage in dialogue. But amidst the diplomatic efforts, skepticism lingers. The UN peacekeeping mission, present in the region but seemingly powerless to prevent the violence, faces renewed criticism. Questions are raised about its effectiveness, its ability to protect civilians caught in the crossfire. Accusations of inaction and indifference hang heavy in the air. Meanwhile, aid workers on the ground, their voices filled with urgency, paint a bleak picture of the situation. They speak of overwhelmed hospitals, of dwindling supplies, of the desperate need for food, water and medical aid. Their pleas for assistance, broadcast on news channels around the world, serve as a stark reminder of the humanitarian crisis unfolding in Goma. As the sun sets on another day of violence in Goma, the future remains uncertain. The sound of gunfire, though less intense, still echoes through the shattered streets. The smoke from burning buildings casts a long shadow over the city, a haunting reminder of the day's events. The people of Goma, their resilience tested but not broken, pick up the pieces of their lives, their hearts heavy with grief and uncertainty. The crisis in Goma is not an isolated incident, but rather the latest chapter in a long and bloody conflict. Years of instability fueled by ethnic tensions, political corruption and the pursuit of valuable resources have created a breeding ground for violence. The international community, often accused of turning a blind eye to the suffering in the region, must shoulder its share of the blame. The road to peace in Goma, and indeed in the entire region, will be long and arduous. It will require a concerted effort from the international community, not just in terms of providing humanitarian assistance, but also in addressing the root causes of the conflict. Justice, accountability and reconciliation must be the guiding principles as the city and its people begin the long and painful process of healing and rebuilding. The world watches, waiting to see if this latest crisis will finally be the catalyst for real and lasting change. The people of Goma, their spirits unbroken, deserve nothing less.